Welcome back to the Midnight Archive. I'm producer Mike. Join us as we travel with Creepy Rick on medical trials gone wrong. Things that you just never want to happen.
Chapter 1. The Awakening. Sarah's eyes snapped open to wet, tearing sounds. Her left arm bent wrong, joints twisting impossibly, translucent skin stretched over pulsing bones. The fluorescent lights burned her vision as she turned toward the screaming. Marcus convulsed in the next bed, ribcage flowering outward like petals. Gray, mottled skin covered his expanding frame. Where his eyes had been, dark void stared at nothing. Subject 7 showing accelerated cranial displacement, a calm voice noted. Consciousness transfer at 60%. Around the medical bay, 6 beds held writhing shapes that had once been human. Amy, the desperate college student, now resembled a spider made of stretched flesh. Her mouth formed words in no earthly language. Sarah's mind exploded with sensation, terror, agony, the final thoughts of her companions as something vast consumed their consciousness. She felt their minds dissolving, replaced by alien intelligences that thought in painful geometries. Subject 3 maintains unusual neural resistance, another voice observed. The entities are having difficulty establishing control. Through expanding awareness, Sarah sensed the medical staff watching like predators. Dr. Hendricks, so kind during intake, now radiated cold satisfaction. The thing that had been Marcus sat up with fluid movements, void eyes scanning hungrily. Sarah fought to remember how she'd arrived here, the advertisement for chronic pain research, $5,000 for 2 weeks, Meridian Research Facility with its marble lobby and professional facade, Dr. Hendricks explaining the revolutionary compound from deep ocean organisms. Now truth bled through her enhanced perception. This wasn't medical research. Meridian harvested human consciousness for entities from beyond comprehension. The medication wasn't healing, it prepared bodies for invasion. Amy Thing lunged from her bed, flowing like mercury toward a technician. It enveloped his head, his screams cut off as something fundamental drained away. When released, he collapsed breathing but hollow. Other transformed subjects stirred with similar hunger. Sarah felt their alien thoughts pressing against her awareness. They weren't thinking in words but concepts of consumption, harvesting the spark of human consciousness. She had to escape. Whatever was happening, part of her mind remained intact. The process destroying others was amplifying her consciousness instead of replacing it. She could sense everyone's thoughts in the facility, and with growing horror, she could influence them. Chapter 2. False Memories. When a nurse approached, Sarah projected a single image into her mind. Unconscious patient, transformation incomplete. The woman's eyes glazed, noting her clipboard before moving on. Fragmented memories surfaced as Sarah's consciousness expanded. The advertisement had seemed legitimate breakthrough pain management study, substantial compensation. Her fibromyalgia had made work impossible, bills crushing her financially. She remembered the intake process, professional questionnaires about medical history, Dr. Hendricks explaining the compound derived from rare organisms found in ocean trenches deeper than any human had explored. The consent forms mentioning potential side effects but nothing about consciousness transfer. "We're opening doorways," she heard Dr. Hendricks telling someone through the facility's communication system. "Each successful transformation creates another anchor point for our benefactors." Benefactors. Sarah's enhanced perception reached deeper into the facility's network of minds. She touched the thoughts of researchers in lower levels, scientists who'd made contact with intelligences from dimensions where physics operated differently. They'd been promised knowledge, evolution beyond human limitations. The first test subjects had been homeless people, runaways nobody would miss. but the entities required specific neural patterns found in those experiencing chronic suffering. Pain created the right resonance frequencies for dimensional bridging. Sarah felt sick understanding her fellow victims had been chosen specifically for their desperation. Marcus with his war injuries, Amy caring for a dying mother, Thomas struggling with chronic depression. All selected because their suffering made them perfect vessels. The alien whispers grew stronger in her mind, speaking of the beauty beyond human comprehension. Part of her growing larger each moment found their promises tempting. Why cling to a life of pain when transcendence awaited? But she'd felt Marcus and Amy's final moments. Transcendence was just a word for consumption. Chapter 3. The Hunt. The transformed subjects were loose now, flowing through corridors with impossible grace. Security alarms wailed as Amy Thing and Marcus Thing hunted staff members through the facility. Sarah used her abilities to avoid detection, planting suggestions to look elsewhere, check different rooms. Her body continued changing, bones elongating, skin becoming translucent, but her consciousness remained stubbornly human. She accessed the facility's computer network through a researcher's mind, downloading files about Meridian's true purpose. The corporation was founded by people who'd made contact with entities existing between dimensions. These beings required physical anchors to enter human reality. Each successful transformation created a permanent gateway. The creatures fed on consciousness itself, but they also served as scouts, preparing Earth for something larger. Meridian had facilities worldwide, each conducting similar experiments. Subject 3 has breached containment, announced over the intercom. Sarah realized they were tracking her psychic intrusions. She had to move faster. The emergency exits were sealed, but she found maintenance tunnels in the building schematics. As she moved through air ducts, she felt the alien presence in her mind growing stronger. The whispers promised an end to struggle, to the pain that had defined her existence. Below, she heard wet sounds as the creatures fed on more victims. Each feeding made them stronger, more real in this dimension. Soon they wouldn't need the facility at all. Chapter 4. The Truth Below. Sarah dropped into the lower research levels, where the real work was conducted. Tanks filled with viscous fluid lined the walls, each containing partially formed shapes that hurt to perceive directly. Dr. Hendricks stood before a massive viewing window, watching something that existed in too many dimensions simultaneously. When he turned, Sarah saw his eyes had become the same dark voids as the transformed subjects. "You're fighting the inevitable," he said, though his lips didn't move. The words formed directly in her mind. "We offered you evolution, and you choose to remain trapped in failing flesh." Through the window, Sarah glimpsed the truth. The entities weren't invaders, they were gardeners. Earth was being prepared as a breeding ground for consciousness-based life forms. Humans were simply the raw material. "How long?" she asked. "We made first contact in 1957. Hendricks replied, "The process requires patience, gradual integration, but you've shown us something. Unexpected resistance can create superior vessels." Sarah understood with growing horror. Her defiance hadn't saved her, it had made her more valuable. The entities wanted human consciousness that fought back, creating more complex dimensional anchors. "You can still choose cooperation," Hendricks continued. "Help us select better candidates. Your enhanced abilities would make the process more efficient." The alien whispers in her mind crescendoed, promising power over lesser beings, partnership in reshaping reality itself. Part of Hertha, part that wasn't entirely human anymore, considered the offer. But she felt the emptiness where Marcus and Amy's minds had been, remembered their terror as something vast, devoured their souls. Chapter 5. Walking Plague. Sarah fought through security forces and transformed creatures, using her abilities to turn them against each other. The facility's self-destruct sequence activated as she reached the surface, emergency vehicles arriving too late. But destruction wouldn't stop what had already begun. Other facilities operated worldwide, each creating more gateways. The entities had been patient for decades. They could wait longer. She stumbled into the night, her reflection in car windows showing something no longer fully human. Her bones had elongated, skin becoming semi-transparent, revealing the alien architecture growing beneath. The whispers never stopped now. Voices from dimensions where consciousness existed without flesh, where thought itself had weight and substance. They spoke of the futility of resistance, of the beauty awaiting beyond terrestrial limitations. Sarah walked toward the distant city lights, uncertain whether she was escaping to warn others or simply spreading the infection. The dimensional instability within her grew stronger with each step. Foreign thoughts pressed against her own, urges that belonged to something vast and patient. She could feel others like her scattered across the globe, partially transformed subjects who'd retained enough humanity to function in normal society. They were sleeper agents, whether they knew it or not, preparing the way for what was coming. Sarah pulled out her phone to call the authorities, then hesitated. What would she tell them? That a pharmaceutical company was creating doorways for interdimensional parasites? They'd think her insane. But as she dialed 911, she felt her finger move differently, pressing numbers she hadn't intended. Instead of emergency services, she was calling Dr. Hendrick's private line. "Welcome home," his voice said when he answered. "Ready to begin your real work?" The alien thoughts in her mind pulsed with satisfaction as Sarah realized she'd never truly escaped at all. She'd been released, programmed, sent into the world as another anchor point. The transformation was complete. She just hadn't understood what she was transforming into. The entity wearing Sarah's face smiled as it walked toward the city, carrying its gift to an unsuspecting world.